извините, я не говорю по-русски. So as I said, very quick introduction, just for myself. So I'm Yannick Tranchier. I've been working in IT field for almost 15 years now, mainly in France for very large IT companies like Capgemini, Altran, Alten, which are a company from 20,000 to more than 100,000 people in the world. And more than 10 years ago, I started working with Russian IT companies as outsourcing company, and especially one in Akademparka. So I have a long history with Russia and IT companies in Russia. And over the years, I specialized in innovation management and startup consulting. I created my own company for consulting with French and Russian startups. And so I know quite well the two models, the European models and the Russian model. And today I will give you first an introduction of what is innovation management for a European company and for European Union. At some point I will also try to compare the European and the Russian model, even if the Russian one is of course much younger. And then I will do a focus on what is innovation, what innovation means for startups, because I guess you are all interested in the startup context. You may be already startups or you are thinking of creating your startup. So I will focus especially on startup on the second part of the presentation. It will be much more interactive. The first part is mainly presentation, but feel free to ask if you have any question for translation or for more information, more detail about what I'm about to present to you.
Все понятно.
So first, why a course on innovation? This is what I'm about to present, a part of actually a full training program that we provide to clusters. And it is very important for you to understand why this course and this information could help you understanding the economic market around innovation and what is the impact for your life and for your business. Innovation will help you win and manage international projects at an international level. I know right now you're probably thinking of creating a local company at first, but everybody's dream is of course to build a very large company, mostly international, with huge revenues. And in this case, you need to innovate. You can create small companies with small ambition on the local market, but if you think big, you need to innovate. And the innovation is a key factor of selling, of course. For you, it will improve your position against your competitors. Of course, the more you innovate, the more you sell compared to your competitors. And in general, it will help your whole career, because we all know that now we don't spend our entire life in the same company. The philosophy, the mindset have changed. It was probably the case for your parents. It was the case of my parents. They spent all their life in the same company, but now everything is evolving so fast. You will probably change 5 or 10 times of company. Even your own company, you will create one, sell it, create another one, and so on until the end of your life. As for myself, so far, I've been working in more than 5 companies already in less than 15 years. So what is innovation? actually, innovation was created with mankind. For instance, humanity created fire, created tools. By that time, of course, it was very innovative. With fire, you can cook. With tools, you can produce things or transform things. And later, we created the alphabet, which was the basis for all knowledge that we know now. Actually, with alphabet, you can pass the knowledge, and then you can work on more contemporary specialties like mathematics, physics, chemistry, technology, and all kind of science that you've been studying at school. The history shows that military purpose is the main source of innovation, and even now, if you look at the US Army, there's a lot of big innovation, disruptive innovation that comes from military organization. The most recent one, of course, is internet. So I guess you know all these examples of the Trojan horse that date back to the Egyptians and the Greeks, and when they entered in the city of Troy in English, sorry, and then archers, and then gunfires and machine guns, and of course fighters, air fighters. And now there are all kind of field for innovation, science that we told already a bit earlier, and more recently all about electronics, computing, and internet, which is right now the main field of innovation. It's in internet that we found the most innovative company and the most numerous. But innovation most of the time doesn't come easily. So you need to do some research. That's what we call R&D. R&D is for startups. It's also for very large company. Basically, research and development is you decide to find some things, and then you start looking and developing things to achieve this discovery. There's a lot of company. I will show you some numbers about how important is R&D for large, medium, and small companies. The idea now is to give you an average picture of R&D and innovation in global economy. And as I said, then we will focus on startup especially. So for instance, I don't know if you can read everything. This is a chart showing the percentage of R&D expenses in average per country. And you can see that mainly the most innovative, the countries that invest the most in R&D are European. The two first are Sweden and Finland, then you have Japan, and then again Switzerland and Iceland. And all these companies are top rated when it comes to innovation ranking worldwide. So that shows the importance of global R&D investments, not only in startups but also in large companies, because it's a full ecosystem that will benefit from all this research and development. And for instance, United States is only 7th, but they can increase their innovation level with different kind of investments, and I will show you later how the Silicon Valley plays a great part in this innovation level compared to R&D expenses. As you can see, Russia is not in the chart. Okay, the chart is a bit old now, but even now, Russia wouldn't be in the chart because there's very little R&D investment in the country, even now in 2013. So that's why there have been so many investment over the past 2-3 years, mainly from state and federal government, to increase, because they realize how important this is for the country economy. Quick introduction also to patent, because when we talk about innovation, of course we talk about patents and intellectual property and how to protect this innovation. I guess you all know what is a patent. Mm-hmm. Everybody, maybe you already own some patents. Is there anyone here that has filled a patent application? No? Okay. So it's probably something that you should aim at, because it's a very effective way to create value. The patent has two purposes. First one is to protect your innovation. So you fill an application form to the intellectual property organization in Russia, and then you can extend this protection worldwide. There are agreements between all the countries in the world, almost all the countries in the world, and Russia is part of this worldwide agreement. So you can protect your innovation first in Russia, and then when your company develop abroad, you can extend the protection to other countries. Second purpose is to create value, because when you create a company, the value of your company is not only the money you make, it's the internal value, like the source code you produce, like the patent you fill, like the knowledge that you collect. And this creates a much higher value than the simple revenue that you get from your business model. That's why, for instance, recently one of your fellow startups raised $3 million from Luna Capital. I think the name is Pletox. Yes. And that's it. You've heard about Pletox, I guess. And they raised $3 million a few weeks back, I think, from Luna Capital. This is just a startup, so they are not making $3 million of revenue right now. But they raised $3 million because from the very beginning they created value. And this value, part of this value, come from patents and come from the team and come from the production of the team. The value of a patent, that is a tricky question. There's no chart, there's no simple mathematical formula to calculate the value. Actually, it depends on the market, it depends on the perspective, economic perspective for such patent. You can sell this patent for billions of dollars. Actually, it was the case for Motorola in US. So Google acquired Motorola 2 years ago, not because they are a phone manufacturer, because actually Motorola phones are completely outdated compared to Samsung, compared to Apple. But Motorola owns thousands of patents, very useful for Google. So Google put several billions on Motorola to acquire all these patents. So that's why I was saying patents have two purposes: to protect your innovation and to create value. This value that you can sell or that you can exploit in the future. Duration of a patent is very important, especially in IT when things are moving very fast and when it's so easy to copy a product. Of course, you all know the Russian example of Contacti copying Facebook, or Ozon copying Amazon, or Yandex copying Google, and so on, and creating very effective and very profitable companies on the Russian local market. So that's why it's important to protect your product, protect your innovation as soon as possible, and extend this protection. Of course, you can't protect your innovation forever and in every country, but from the very beginning you need to think of the market you are targeting, and you need to protect your innovation and anticipate the protection in both countries. And there is one sector where duration is very important. For internet, basically is just creating value. The protection is quite difficult to enforce because it's very easy to copy and say, oh, but it's not exactly the same thing, especially for internet companies. So the patent is here more for creating value than for protecting IP in the internet domain. But today we won't talk only about internet. And when it comes to drugs, to pills, to medicine, in this case, large companies, they invest billions of dollars every year to create a new formula, a new molecular. And this has to be protected, because you can't just take a 10 billion research program and copy it in 10 days, and you would waste at least the $10 billion without this protection. So I guess you've heard about this delay. It depends, it's usually between 10 and 20 years, where the company, the drug or chemistry company, has exclusive right on a molecular or on a formula. So they make as much money as they can for these 10 or 20 years, and then everybody has the right to copy the formula and to produce copycats of this product. And at that point, the value of the product is less, because at the beginning there's only one company. So there's a monopoly. Of course, the value is huge. And then when you have a lot of competitors, prices and margins are decreasing. And you need to create new formula to create new and more value. If it's too fast or too slow, please tell me, and feel free to ask questions at any time.
No worries, everything's really cool.
Okay.
Keep doing.
About the last question, what is the best IP protection? I would say there is two answers. The first is the standard organization, all kind of IP organization. So there's the Russian one, there is the European one, and the Russian one actually is part of this big European organization, and Russia is also part of a worldwide organization for protecting IP. And the second and most effective protection way when you work in a very fast evolving, fast growing industry like internet is just to keep innovating and again, so you're always ahead of your competitors. It's not about protecting actually your innovation, it's just innovating faster and better than your competitors. Quickly, same chart representing all kind of countries across the world, and basically the ranking is almost the same, but R&D chart and R&D ranking, and it's not surprising at all, because the purpose of R&D is to create patent. So we can see Switzerland and Sweden just switch places, but basically it's the same. We have the top Nordic countries, European countries, and Japan, who is investing a lot because of their geographical position. Japan is an island, very small, so they have no choice than to innovate in new technology, because they can't rely on the agriculture economy, for instance. They can't grow anything in Japan, it's just volcanoes on very small area. compared to Russia that was able to grow a very profitable economy on agriculture and industry. And that's why right now Russia is lagging behind when it comes to new technology and services. And the same for US, so we are not number one in number of patents per inhabitants, but they managed to create such a dynamic economy that they are the number one economy in the world, even if they are not number one in innovation.
What about the Chinese? Is it represented on this chart?
Chinese, they are not producing a lot of patents. So far, the Chinese economy is more focused on industry so far, so they have the advantage of being the biggest market, local market. So they produce local businesses, but when you create a local business in China, you have almost 2 billion customers. When you create a Russian local company, you have 140 million customers. So the need for innovation is not on the same level.
Sam, what about the legal situation? How the intellectual property is protected in China? Because as far as I heard, that all the new technologies try to be copied, and they don't care about the sues and
exactly. That's a major concern for foreign companies, because
to bring the new technologies there on their market, right?
Exactly, because there's no way to really enforce IP laws in China. Even in Russia, it was a big problem, and since the creation of Skolkovo and new laws, there's a new IP tribunal in Skolkovo since last year, I think. So Russia put a lot of effort in ensuring foreign companies that their innovation would be protected on the Russian market. But in China, so far, they don't care at all, because it's such a huge market that all big international companies have to be there to access these 2 billion customers, or maybe 1.5, we never know. But since it's just the largest by far market in the world, and the Chinese government have such power of attraction that they can negotiate whatever they want. For instance, it's a major concern in France. France is number one on nuclear technology, nuclear plants in the world. So we are trying to sell not the technology but the plant to all kind of countries around the world, Arabics and all fast-growing countries with energy issues. In China, the Chinese government said, we don't want to buy plant, we want to buy technology, and we will build plant with your technology. So if you want to be in China, you have no choice. You just sell us technology. It's same for Airbus. Airbus, I guess you know about it. So it's number one and number two in the world aircraft manufacturer. It depends. Every year it changes with Boeing, but Airbus has had to build a plant and to sell technology to Chinese people to produce the new A320 in China for Chinese market. So in this case, you can't protect your technology or your IP policy, because you have to sell it.
It's a really smart government policy.
Of course.
Can but agree, right?
Of course, but they have the power to negotiate this. Not all countries can do it.
They accumulate all the new technologies, the patents inside the country.
Yeah. So that's why everybody thinks that in 50 years we will all be Chinese.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Probably not all in Russia, but as for Europe or more dense countries, that's a major concern.
That's why you have Russia as a buffer, in between the Europe and
Yeah, yeah, but
so
they know how to travel to Europe and bypass
Yeah.
Russia. That's actually also why I'm so interested in the Russian markets. Aside the fact that I love Russia, it's also a huge potential market for innovation because it's the biggest country and at the same time very small population. So there's a lot of things to do, and Russia is not the priority for US or for China.
yeah.
So we are still.
And currently it's really fast growing market.
Exactly.
It's we're trying to.
I have a lot of numbers about Russia that I present in such conference in Europe, but in this case I won't talk about Russia and all figures. It's better if I present you figures that probably you don't know about European Union innovation funding. So compared to Russia, actually even now when Russia is investing a lot, these numbers are way, way bigger. For instance, just in France, which is a very small country, we invest much more on innovation than all Russia. So if you look at the big picture of European Union, you have several kinds of program. The most famous one is Framework Program 7, which actually ends this year, and so we are already preparing the Framework Program 8 for the next 3 years. And actually Russia is supposed to be part of this framework program. So far it was only European Union, and now Russia is negotiating with European Union, like Israel for instance, to enter this program so that Russian companies could benefit from this innovation funding. So we are talking about 50 billion euros just for innovation fund. In comparison, Skolkovo, which is right now the largest cluster and innovation fund in Russia, has invested around 300 million as grant in startups last year. So you can see the difference. But actually there's also a lot of clusters and a lot of regions in investing. It's just we're talking in millions, not in billions for each one of these clusters. IT cluster here being one of the most active actually in Russia in terms of funding. Then you have a competitiveness innovation program, so it's more like the kind of contest, innovation contest that you have with FASIE for instance, just that budgets are much bigger, but the idea is the European Union chooses one or two specific domains, and then they send a call for proposal, and they select the best program among all this. For FP7 and forthcoming FP8, it's not really a contest. You apply, and if your project is valuable, it will get fundings. I won't go into detail to all of our funds. The most important for this presentation this morning is just to see the pictures and to see how much money the European Union is investing in innovation, and we'll see what is the impact for the real economy. So why is Europe the best in the world in innovationally wise? Because these countries, they don't have such huge local markets, so they need to make a difference on the global economy, and innovation is right now the only way to do such thing. We can't rely on our number of inhabitants. We are of course much less than Chinese people, We can't count on our local market because we don't have enough customers. So we need to innovate to sell our product all around the world. If you remember on the first slide, innovation equal selling. You innovate, you sell your product. And in this analysis, unfortunately, a lot of countries are missing because these countries, except for Israel that is catching up very fast, all other countries, they are not really investing in innovation. And Korea is also another exception, thanks to Samsung, which is obviously one of the best innovative company in the world, but for quite long, Samsung was just copying Apple. I'm sure you've read a lot of articles about it, and you've read a lot of articles about patent conflict and tribunal fights between Apple and Samsung all over the world. It's quite funny because actually I don't have it with me, but there is this huge chart when you have all the battles between Apple and Samsung for each country, and say, oh, in Germany Apple win, in France Samsung win, in Australia, and they're just spending billions of dollars because for many years, until let's say last year, Samsung was just copying Apple. And because, as I said, protecting innovation in internet and new technology is difficult, Samsung can win some trials even though it's obvious they were copying Apple.
Yannick, I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned there that Israel is not in that chart. But why? It's just what is connected with, what is the reason for it? I know that Israel has a great many of technological parks and business incubators, and they are developing innovation.
Because the charts are just too old.
Okay.
It was an old picture of a situation. The situation hasn't changed a lot. The rankings are exactly the same. So it's still the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Finland, not Denmark because it's too small, and Switzerland. They are always, depending on the ranking, they are always in the top 5 position worldwide. But Israel, as I said, is catching up very fast. There's a lot of US fund investing in Israel, even Russian fund. Israel, I don't know how they managed to do it, but they are friends with US and with Russia at the same time.
They are Jewish.
Yes, they are very good at selling all kind of stuff, and now they are very good at selling startups. For instance, the last example is Wazi.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about this? It's a GPS navigation mobile application, and actually, I don't want to say the wrong number, but I think Google acquired Wazi last month for $900 million. And it's a startup that was created like 4 or 5 years ago. So they're catching very fast. They gather investment from all around the world, thanks to, of course, the Jewish community spread, the diaspora all around the world. And they have a power of attraction that could be compared to Silicon Valley. Of course, it's smaller. Tel Aviv is very small, but very high density new technology company and new technology talents.
Okay, thank you.
And Russia, of course, is trying to catch up, looking at different model. I mentioned Skolkovo already. It's supposed to be the Russian Silicon Valley in Tiger. There's a different name. It will never be a Silicon Valley because there's only one Silicon Valley. In France, we try to create our own Silicon Valley. It's called Sophia Antipolis. I don't know if you've heard about it. Because I know that the cluster with Alexei Mereshcherin and maybe Alexei Logvinsky also, they went to Sophia Antipolis last December to sign a memorandum of understanding. So this is what is the closest to Silicon Valley, but it has no comparison with we don't have Google, we don't have Apple, we don't have Microsoft in Sofia Antipolis. Actually, we have, but it's just subsidiaries, but we don't have French equivalent. And Skolkovo, it won't be the same because first, you don't have the sea, the sun, and all these huge players, and the Russian economy is totally different. So you can't rely on the Silicon Valley model to attract talents and to attract companies in the neighborhood of Moscow. So now that's why there are so many initiatives in Russia, the Skolkovo initiative, the Association of Innovative Region, and all kind of local, regional initiative like the IT Park in Kazan, like Akadempark here, and they are looking at the best practices in Israel, in France, in US, and try to adapt it to the Russian specifics, because here we're not in France, we're not in US, so you need to adapt the model. Very quick focus on the Nordic countries, and just to understand how they became champion of innovation worldwide. First, actually, it's almost like Russia, I mean, the context. These countries are quite big for European market, not compared to Russia, but empty countries, very low density of inhabitants. So one of the key factors for evolution of a country is telecom technology. Of course, for Finland, you know Nokia, which was for a very long time #1 by far in the world mobile manufacturer. And Sweden also invested a lot in the telecom infrastructure. You have Tele2, which is present in Russia, for instance. They are present in France and in almost every country in the world. So they decided to focus on some specific industries and take a lead, worldwide lead on these industries. And with this dominant position, they are able to create a huge value and huge margin to sustain a very profitable economy. Compared to all other Western and Eastern European countries, Sweden, Finland, and even more Norway, but that's because they are out of the Eurozone, they were able to go through the crisis with almost no problem. Whereas in France, we are still deeply in the crisis, and Spain and Italy and almost all of our European countries are also very badly in the crisis. So they created the national champions mostly on telecom industry that spread very quickly worldwide. They invested a lot in wireless and internet because, as I said, of the very low density of inhabitants. You don't invest a lot in landline telecom infrastructure. You invest directly in mobile. It's the same for Russia. The mobile penetration rate is very high for Russia, even if the economy is not so innovative and so advanced. But Russia has decided just to jump 1 or 2 technology steps to catch up with the rest of the world, and that's why now almost everybody has a smartphone, and the smartphone penetration rate in Russia is almost as high as in Western Europe and US. And all this thanks to government policy. You can't just create your multinational company on your own, starting in your apartment in Akadempark. You need strong policy, strong support from the government that would lead the way to the future for all new innovative company. And they started quite a long time ago because, as you can see, they won one of the first Nobel Prize in 1945. Nobel Prize is a good way to see actually the innovation picture, global picture, because it represents the effort in global innovation in different fields like mathematics, physics, and so on. As far as I know, there is no Russian Nobel Prize, but maybe I'm mistaken, in mathematics and physics. Maybe feel free to correct me if you know Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize in mathematics.
No, it's field medal, but it's the same. It's supposed to be the same. But anyway, that's a good example of actually how it's not only about innovation, but it's how you show your innovation to the world. Because if you just invent something very disruptive in your office and you don't show the world, you will never get the Nobel Prize. You all know about Linus Torvalds, of course, who invented Linux. There is this professor who invented neural networks very long time ago now, many decades ago. They succeeded in changing an economy mainly based into agriculture and forest processing to an innovation leader in the world based on all this technical and mathematical innovation. And one example regarding Sweden, because we mainly know Finland as a very innovative country, not a lot about Sweden, but they are innovating a lot too. And one of the best examples is Skype, because it's a very famous company that actually was created in Sweden in 2003. So now, how you manage innovation on a global level? The best way that we found is to create innovation clusters. Silicon Valley is basically just a cluster. So back to World War II, scientists and scientific lab decided to gather all kind of talents, expertise, company in the same place to increase the pace of innovation. That was the main idea behind the first cluster. Because if everybody is in the same place, we are not competitors. We are actually helping each other, communicating, passing innovation to our colleagues so we can improve it or find new application for such innovation. And that's why Silicon Valley is such a big success, because they succeeded in building around a university. I will show a precise picture on it. Startups and large company and a full ecosystem of all the different players in the innovation field. So the name cluster actually is quite young. It was created less than 20 years ago, like 15 years ago to be precise. And what is important to notice is that the cluster, it's a place where everybody is working at the same time on the same thing or on the same domain. And that is what the cluster is meant for. There is this very interesting image when you compare local market effect to supermarket. So you just create all kind of independent but interconnected local shops and it's much more effective than just one supermarket. Now the supermarket model is decaying, even in Russia, but in Europe, these huge hypermarkets now are losing a lot of money. And I will go back, I will tell about it later, but when we talk about clusters and innovative clusters, it's not only about new technology. For instance, in Italy, you have the Renaissance movement that actually gathered all painters and sculptors and architects in the same place, from France, from all leading countries at that time. They were all moving to Italy to create what we all know now as the Renaissance style, which is a huge step in art history. Same for Siècle des Lumières, which is light century. It's this time in France where all philosophers were all in Paris thinking of what would be the future, like Pascal, for instance, which is one of the most famous French philosophers of that time. So what is a cluster? In fact, it's universities, startups, big organizations, big companies, and financial support. So all this put together in the same place at the same time. And with that, we have formal and informal interaction. As I said, it's better to have a lot of small companies all interacting together than just one big company acquiring all these small ones. Because then you have a monopoly. That was the case of Nokia, for instance, 10 years ago, and now they're decaying because they were on top with very few competition, and they stopped, not completely, but they stopped innovating at the same pace. And you can see that startup is in the middle of this ecosystem. It is the source of innovation, and then the financing will help the startup grow. The big firm will bring money, bring value, bring application to these startups. Organization like IT cluster, like business incubator, will help this company to manage their innovation, to deal with incomes, and to manage their expenses. And of course, university will provide with all the talents of the brains that you need for innovation. Again, a large picture of clusters all around the world, and we can see that it's quite different than the chart regarding R&D and regarding patent. And we can see how Japan and United States succeeded in becoming the first and second economy in the world in beginning 2000. Of course, now Chinese have taken the second place, but for long, Japan and the United States were fighting for first place. It's because they succeeded in creating very effective clusters. And no matter if in Japan there's not a lot of patents or a lot of R&D, they are third for innovation, they are first for clusters. And the United States, which was 7 for patent, they are third when it comes to clusters. And that makes United States the most effective digital economy in the world. And you can see just a quick focus on France. We are lagging behind by far. Let's get back quickly to Silicon Valley story. So, as I said, the starting point was the university, because any company, any innovation relies on people. So you need talents, you need brands to create innovation, and all these talents come first from university. University help people to think smart and to anticipate innovation, and then all these brains are gathered in companies to create real life product. But first, the school, the universities will help formatting brands for future innovation. And Stanford University, very early in the 50s, decided to create this first ecosystem just to help students, just to help postgraduated to apply all their knowledge gathered during the courses to create innovative company. And this investment succeeded in creating a small startup that then attracted much larger company. And one of the first to invest in this Stanford ecosystem was General Electric. It was already a very large company, and they get much bigger thanks to Stanford University ecosystem. So you can see interaction. Oh, only. I'm sorry. I thought we have much more time, so I prepared for more than 2 hours.
As soon as we started a bit later.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. It's my fault. So you can see interaction. I already talked about on the previous slide, but applied to Stanford. So from the beginning, university, Stanford University and Stanford Industrial Park were actually the two starting points, and then it succeeded in attracting this huge public organization, the big company like GE, and now you all know about Google, about Apple, about Microsoft, which are all big players in the Silicon Valley. And finance. When you look at the numbers for investors, VCs in US, it's just a totally different scale. In France, when you are a startup, you're happy when you raise $500,000. In US, when you start your startup, you raise 5 million. So it's a ratio from 1 to 10. Quickly, some example of very successful companies created by Silicon Valley. Unfortunately, some of them are not so successful anymore, like Silicon Graphics or like Netscape, but for the most recent one, they are still very active. The thing is, in 15 minutes, I don't know how to wrap it up. Yeah, let's talk about probably.
Part.
Yes, very quickly, I will just skip this part and go directly to type of innovation, which is actually the presentation was made to go from introduction of innovation history, innovation management history, to concrete application on actually how to innovate and why to innovate in Russia. So different source of innovation, for instance, discovery. I can talk about penicillin because it's a French invention and it's just hazardous discovery. I guess you heard about Pasteur, and actually he went on vacation and forgot some of his lab components in the lab, and when he get back from vacation, he discovered what is now known as penicillin. So it's pure hazard. Sometimes it happens. Hopefully, you've all heard about Newton and the apple. that was the beginning of gravity. And of course, there are also a lot of invention coming from very hard work. Unfortunately, you don't just discover innovation every day when you wake up and say, oh, look at the window, oh, this is an innovation, that's nice. No, most of the time you need to work for it. And especially in new technology, you can see gravity, penicillin, relativity, it's mostly nature. But when we are talking about computers, smartphone and so on, this is not nature anymore. So we need very hard work and hard thinking to come up with such innovation. There is only also one very powerful source of innovation is serendipity. Do you know what this word means?
Интуитивная прозорливость, это значит.
Okay. I thought it was the same in Russian because we have exactly the same word in French, and there's a lot of similarity between French and Russian
Ну, дословно, это
vocabulary.
интуитивная, да, прозорливость. Прозорливость.
So, basically, what is serendipity? You're looking for something and you're finding something else, but you're finding something. So that is serendipity. Curiosity is part of serendipity, but it's half research and half chance, something like that. It's you are curious, you're open-minded, so you look for something. You're looking for a solution. For instance, you wake up in the morning and you say, "Oh, it would be great if I had a system that I don't know, automatically it exists, but automatically detect that I'm waking up and start the coffee machine," for instance. So you look for a solution, and actually, while looking for this solution, you come up with another solution. So you're not making coffee, but maybe you're just starting the dishwasher, or I don't know. So the world was created long time ago, and it's very actual. And actually, how does it materialize in the startup life? It's what we call most of the time pivoting. You know what is pivoting? It's you start your company with an idea, and while you are developing this idea, you realize that actually this is not what the customer needs. They need something slightly different. So you're pivoting your company, you're pivoting your idea based on what you first started to do. But actually you're creating something else, which is in some way related to the first idea. So I will try to speed up. We can distinguish two main categories of innovation: incremental and disruptive. I guess both terms are clear. So incremental, you take a technology, you improve it, and again and again and again and again. So it's step-by-step innovation by improving. Disruptive, it's a breakthrough innovation. So it's something new, like the wheel. It's a disruptive technology. You just don't take a square and transform it into a wheel. It's not incremental innovation. You come up with the idea of a wheel. That is disruptive innovation.
Вы поняли?
So of course, incremental innovation is the easiest one, is the more common one, because you take something that exists already and you improve it. And when I was talking about all kind of copycat is a sort of incremental innovation.
Chinese innovation.
Chinese innovation, for instance. I would say Russian innovation because, for instance, most of Russian copycat, they are not better than the original. Whereas, for what I know about Russian copycat, they are always improved over the original model. So that's one way, and the main way right now in Russia of innovation. We don't need to go any more in detail, and I will pass the presentation through the conference. Disruptive is, of course, much more difficult to achieve because ever you have a chance to discover it, but most of the time you just need to start over from scratch, trying to imagine a new way of doing something, or how to create a new material or a new technology. This is a huge challenge, and when you're trying to invent disruptive technology, this is where the intellectual property protection is much more important, because you need to create a barrier between you and the competition. So either you are just much smarter than your competition, so you create something that no one else can create, or you know that it will be just a matter of time before the competition copy and even improve your own technology, and you need to protect it. These are some examples. I took the wheel because it's the probably first very disruptive invention, mechanical invention, but there are so many others like water-powered engine, steam-powered engine, electricity, automotive, and computer. And all these disruptive technology, as you can see, have created their own market. That's why it's so powerful to create disruptive technology. Not all companies can be disruptive, of course, but on the contrary to incremental innovation, you are just taking a technology and improve it to adapt better to a market. With the disruptive technology, you create your own market, and you will actually create your own ecosystem. Maybe I should just pass this slide very quickly. Just a quick example of these two technology, how Microsoft was able to overcome Netscape. I remember when I first started working in computer, everybody was using Netscape because it was supposed to be the most advanced browser in history. But very quickly, they just couldn't catch up with Microsoft innovation, and now Microsoft is completely overtaken by Chrome. At least I don't have the numbers in Russia, but for instance in France there are more Chrome users than Internet Explorer users, whereas 10 years ago I think 95% of French internet users were on Internet Explorer. And Kodak, they didn't realize how important the digital camera market is. So they stick with their old paper system, which is very fun, but now no one uses paper. And Kodak, the only way they find to survive actually is to sell all their patents. They just recently sold for hundreds of millions of dollars for patents. So this is, how to say it, probably a bit pretentious to say the solution, because there is no one solution. There are different kinds of innovation, and unfortunately, even if you follow all these rules, even if you know everything about innovation management, it doesn't mean that your company will be successful and will make billions of dollars. There's a lot of failure, and actually failure is a part of innovation process. That's why all investors, they're investing in a lot of different companies, because they know among 10 companies, only 1 or 2 will be very successful. Probably 5 or 6 will just grow on the local market, and the rest will fail. So you don't have to be afraid of failure. It's completely normal for a startupper to fail, and actually it's better to start with a failure. If you can overcome this first failure, you will be much stronger for the next startup. And in US, for instance, investors prefer to invest in people who already failed, because they know how to manage difficulties, they know how to pivot their business model when needed. Okay, so there's a lot of information on this slide, but basically these are the key points that you need to take into account when you create a business, when you create a startup. First thing is the business model, how you make money. And for this, I will quickly focus on Russia, because for the past 2 years, I've been traveling all across Russia, trying to discover new technology, new startup, new innovative company.
Did you succeed?
I found quite interesting companies, but most of the time I talked to a lot of startuppers, and they didn't think of all these questions. And my first question is always, how do you make money with your product, your technology, your company? And 90% of the time they say, I don't know. So why do you start a company if you don't know how to make money? Unless this is just for fun. But you don't create a company for fun. You create a company for a precise purpose, and most of the time is to make money. Of course, you may want to make the world a better place, but you still need money. Everybody needs money. So it must be first thing, how you make money. And second question, if the startup had the answer to the first question, they never had the answer to the second question, what is your market? Okay. They have a business model, but there are no market. I have to say that I met a lot of startups here in Novosibirsk, because I came 2 years ago for a similar conference to a group of startups, and I did it again last year. And every time they say, oh, since the previous conference last year, we thought about our business model, so now we know how to make money. Okay, but what are your customers? They say, oh, we need customers. Yeah, you're right. We have a good business model, but we don't have customers. So this is some sort of checklist. It's not exhaustive, of course. But if you can answer to all these 10 questions, you're at least on the right direction for making your company a success. And probably I will stop with that, or do we have, maybe we will just open
in another room, I think, if it's interesting.
Face-to-face meetings,
Yes,
yeah.
so if somebody needs a consultation, something like that, you may continue in another room, okay?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I would like just to finish with one thing. I've been working with Alexei for quite a long time now, and we came up with a training program that could be interesting for business incubator, and Alexei wanted me to tell you quickly a few words about this training program, because as I said, I think that most of startups, at least now in Akadempark and Akadempark, they are lacking the basis. And this training program, it's just an intensive 1 week classes for innovation management. We don't go through all this introduction, and we go directly to what do you need to make your company a success. So we analyze the different kind of business model, we analyze organization, we go on face-to-face meeting to go more into detail. There is pitch station training, and I'd like to have your feedback on such training program to see if you'd be interested, because actually it's you who in the end decide if you need this or not.
I'm pretty sure that everybody will be glad to participate. And this is in stage of what stage?
It's
online program.
the idea is actually to start from the very beginning when you enter the business incubator with this 1 week. Let me show you
Can you
quickly.
speak in one?
So this is the idea. In just 1 week, we make quick introduction on what is innovation, and basically you see most important information, and then we go to through the process of how you get from the idea to the market and the success. So how to manage your innovation, especially. All you need, because if you have your business model, it means that you need a business plan, an executive summary. Executive summary is a very useful tool to structure your thinking, to structure your organization, because it forces you to make a formal presentation. And all these tools are very useful for raising money, because most of the time, not all, but most of the time, you need to raise money very fast to develop very fast your innovation, and as I said, take a lead on your market and then keep this lead all the way till the end of the company, if there is an end, because you want to sell your company to a big player, or in case of very huge American success like Google and so on, they just decided to become #1 in the world. So this is actually a different kind of strategy that we discuss also, because it's good to know from the very beginning what you want to know, what you want to do, with your company. Of course, you can change, and it's good to change in the way, because no matter how good is your plan, it never occurs as it is planned. And and of course, there will be a huge part on the funding. So who is financing innovation now in Russia? You all know about Fazier. I guess if you created already your startup, you applied for the START program, which is the easiest way to start your company with small money. You all know about Fazier and the START program? Fazier is the fund for assistance of small innovative enterprise. It is mainly called as the Bortnik Fund.
Фонд Бортника, фонд здесь Академпарк является его региональным представителем. Это фонд, который поддерживает малые инновационные предприятия различными суммами.
It's 1 million first year, 2 million second year, 3 million ruble third year. Fazier is organizing also some specific contests all year long on each domain. There's also a specific program that I know quite well because it's an agreement between France and Russia. So they are financing a collaborative project between the two countries. So I won't go through all the players, but you have Skolkovo, you have regional funds, you can use technology from university, which is also a very effective way to develop the first step of your innovation company, because you just transfer technology from the university to a company, and it's called the Medvedev law, I think.
Which
It
one?
was, I don't, there's a number, but I don't remember. But basically, this law allows university to create spin-off to transfer technology to the market.
Господи, закон, на основании которого созданы были малые инновационные предприятия в вузах.
So these are some examples of what we will see in this training program if you think that it is useful. Who is in the business incubator already? No one?
No, we're all applicants for this.
You're all applicants?
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
Graduates of innovative schools may become residents of business incubators. They are not yet.
Okay, so you are the perfect audience for such training program,
Fresh meat.
I think. I didn't understand, sorry.
Fresh meat.
Fresh meat. And basically, there is two formats. So there is this first 1 week when you enter the business incubator. We have lessons in the morning and practical study in the afternoon. So we go on one-to-one meetings to analyze the specifics of your project, because of course when you enter the business incubator you have just idea or some very little part of the technology of a product you want to develop. And as I said, it is meant to give you all the tools to grow your company very fast. And the idea is to combine this training program with the business incubator selection. So we make sure that all candidates will benefit from such training. But maybe after the training, and as I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing, maybe we will realize that the project is not viable, but at least you don't waste time on this project. After 1 week, you know, I can't assure you that you will make billions of dollars with each idea.
It's a kind of pre-incubation.
It's the first step.
Yes.
So it's helped speeding up the process, because right now I know that there's already consultancy, but it's very...
It doesn't evaluate the project itself.
Yes, it's just services on demand, a few hours from time to time. The idea is to be intensive training program. And then I was thinking of the next step, which is the immersive format, and this would be probably after 1 year. I think it's the best timing, because most of the time you need 1 year to develop your innovation, to find your market, to make first contact on the local market, unless you decide you could, but it's not the objective of the business incubator. You could decide to move abroad to start your company, but we are here to encourage local innovation and to give you all necessary tools to grow your company here in Akademparka. And so after 1 year, you should be a fully grown startup with a few people. You should have raised your first angel money or VC money, and your product, first version of the product, should be ready. And it would be very good timing for an immersive program. I suggest to do it in Paris, because Paris is still one of the most innovative places in the world, and I know it very well, so it would be very effective. And you would see actually all the French companies are developing. You could compare to them, and we could organize meetings with startups, experts, large company, to help you improve your business model, to help you accessing the European market, because of course it's a huge step when you start exporting the technology. It's normally the second step. You grow on your local market and then you try to expand globally. I'm sorry. So a large company could be interesting in your technology. Experts could bring improvements to your technology. And visits to universities and clusters could help tie links with maybe competitors but on another market, and you could decide to create joint ventures for improving and growing even much faster. There are all kinds of, as I said, possibilities to grow your business. You can raise money. Sometimes your business is full bootstrap. I don't know if you understand this. Bootstrap means that actually you don't need external money, because from the very beginning you have a very effective business model, so you make money from the first day of your company. It exists. But the difficulty with such business is that it's very difficult to to keep the lead on the competition. If you are able to make money on the first day, it means that the competition will be able to do so. So there's different kind, and that's why also it's important to compare with foreign companies and foreign ecosystem. So that's the idea. That's actually my suggestion for the Association of Innovative Region, and especially my suggestion for Academpark.
Thank you.
And
I think I will work on it.